Welcome to WatchMojo, and today we'll be looking at the most notable public figures who mysteriously disappeared and have never been heard from since.
For more than 4 decades, Chucky O'Brien has been known as a key suspect in Jimmy Hoffa's disappearance.
Harold Holt.
It's feared that the Prime Minister has drowned. A great search is being made for Mr. Holt off Portsea, Victoria. However, no official announcement has been made as to the fate of the Prime Minister. Mr. Holt went for a swim shortly after noon with a friend, Mr. Alan Stewart, a quarantine officer from the Melbourne suburb of Armadale.
The 17th Prime Minister of Australia was last seen on December 17, 1967. While spending time at his Portsea, Victoria residence, Holt suggested to his friends that they travel to Cheviot Beach for a swim. While in the choppy waters, Holt was swept away by a rip current and never seen again.
Dozens of police, search and rescue squads and divers have been rushed to the area and have been searching since 2 o'clock. Light craft have been braving the heavy seas near Portsea, and several aircraft have been in the air constantly. Officials say the sea search is hampered by heavy rolling seas.
While his death was ultimately ruled an accidental drowning, conspiracy theories have persisted since that fateful 1967 day. Most famously, British writer Anthony Gray's 1983 book, The Prime Minister Was a Spy, suggested that Holt had been a spy for the Chinese government. Furthermore, Gray posed the wild notion that the Prime Minister's drowning had been faked so that he could board a Chinese submarine and be carted off to Beijing.
Submarines, very unlikely indeed. They couldn't operate in those waters at the time. I don't think they could operate in those waters today, actually. It's pretty choppy. But also the killer of that one for me is the fact that both Harold and his wife, Zara, I believe her name was, disliked Chinese food intensely.
Michael Rockefeller.
Tribal warfare is commonplace and expected. Death must be met with revenge. Among these fierce Aboriginal men, Michael Rockefeller traveled to study and learn.
Age 23 at the time of his 1961 disappearance, Rockefeller, maybe you've already guessed it, was a son of New York Governor Nelson Rockefeller, who later served as U.S. Vice President under Gerald Ford. Through his father, Michael was an heir to the famed Rockefeller fortune, and through his studies at Harvard, became interested in studying the native tribes of what's now known as Western New Guinea.
For 6 months, Michael served as the expedition's soundman and still photographer. When his work was over, he was drawn to another part of New Guinea, to a people called the Osmot.
On November 17, 1961, Michael attempted to traverse 3 nautical miles to shore, but never made it. Although Michael's disappearance has never been conclusively explained, the 2 most popular theories posit that he either drowned before reaching land or was captured and killed by the local Asmat tribe.
Recently, the chief of Oostjanep was interviewed. He recalled the search for Michael Rockefeller. There were many airplanes and boats. We were afraid and blocked our river with trees. Our enemies in the other villages all say that we killed him. They want us to get into trouble.
Zoe McClellan.
You really buy into her crap?
I love her.
Sure. What's not to love?
While you may not know McClellan's name offhand, it's possible that you're familiar with her work. The actress, who appeared on such small screen hits as JAG, NCIS New Orleans, and Designated Survivor, disappeared in April of 2019.
Is there something else?
No, ma'am.
I've had a good appetite since the seasickness stopped.
Must be the salt air, ma'am.
McClellan was reportedly in the midst of a custody battle with her ex-husband, J.P. Gillian, over her son Sebastian. Both Zoe and Sebastian haven't been seen since, and in May 2021, McClellan was charged with child custody deprivation and child stealing. Despite the best efforts of the relevant authorities, McClellan and her son have yet to be located as of 2025.
Well, I don't necessarily call myself a psychic, but so since I was a little girl, I would dream about things, and then I would tell my dad, and then they would happen the next day.
Barbara Newhal Flet. The daughter of famed literary editor Wilson Flet, Barbara was a child prodigy who was just 12 years old when her first novel, The House Without Windows, was published in 1927. Showing aptitude for the written word from a young age, Barbara's story was put into print by her father and almost immediately received critical acclaim. Follett published only one more novel during her lifetime, The Voyage of Normandy. After her parents' acrimonious split, Barbara went to work, writing several more manuscripts that went unpublished. In 1933, she got married, but was overcome by feelings of depression as the years went by. After a fight with her husband in December of 1939, Barbara stormed out of the house and was never seen again. Dorothy Arnold. Before the Kardashians, Paris Hilton, or even Zsa Zsa Gabor, there was Dorothy Arnold. Born in 1885 to Francis R. Arnold, a senior partner at a company that imported fine goods. Dorothy was an aspiring writer who never managed to find success in her lifetime. On December 12, 1910, Dorothy left the house at 11 a.m., ostensibly to buy a new dress. Although she had indicated to a friend that she intended to walk home through Central Park, she never made it there, and her family waited weeks before reporting her missing. That owed to her father's embarrassment over the incident, and although several efforts were eventually made to find Dorothy, they never panned out. Theodosia Burr Alston.
Theodosia received word her exiled father was coming back to the country. Wanting to see him, she begged to meet him, but concerned for her safety, Governor Alston allowed the travel only on conditions.
As long as your health starts improving, doesn't get any worse, as long as that doctor stays with you, along with a close personal friend of the family.
Yet another scion of a noted American family, Burr Alston was born to 3rd U.S. Vice President Aaron Burr and his first wife Theodosia Bartow Prevost. Years after her mother's death, the younger Theodosia married Joseph Alston in 1801. Alston was elected to the governorship of South Carolina in 1812.
In 1812, Theodosia and her husband Joseph actually had a son. The son was about 10 years old and unfortunately passed away.
Their son, taken by malaria. Theodosia soon falling into a deep depression.
Joseph Alston was so concerned for his wife that he had a physician just with her all the time.
Later that year, Theodosia intended to travel to New York to be reunited with her father, who had returned from Europe in July. She traveled aboard the schooner Patriot, which disappeared, along with all of its passengers, including Theodosia. The most popular rumor about her fate speculated that she had been captured by pirates, but historical analysis has determined that the ship likely wrecked due to a storm.
That's the rocky shore there. And a bad storm came upon them, and the ship, the Patriot, was beat up on the rocks, and everyone aboard the ship drowned. There were other stories of it being taken over by pirates.
Today, many in Georgetown believe they've seen Theodosia's ghostly presence around the old brick warehouse near the dock where she waited to board the schooner.
Ambrose Bierce. Routinely acclaimed as one of the great American writers, Bierce is perhaps best known for The Devil's Dictionary, a satire, and the pioneering short story An Occurrence at Owl Creek Bridge. A military veteran having fought for the Union during the Civil War, a 71-year-old Bierce left for Mexico in 1913, traveling with revolutionary Pancho Villa. Bierce made it as far as Chihuahua, and in a letter dated December 26th, stated that, quote, "I leave here tomorrow for an unknown destination." Bierce was never heard from again, but a retired American priest in the Mexican state of Coahuila claimed that the author had been executed in the city of Sierra Mojada. Scott Smith. Smith was the longtime bassist for Canadian rock giants Loverboy, best known for their hits Turn Me Loose and Working for the Weekend. Smith, who originally hailed from Winnipeg and lived in Maple Ridge, British Columbia, played with the band from 1979 until his disappearance in 2000. On November 30th of that year, a pleasure cruise off the coast of San Francisco turned tragic when he was swept overboard by a wave. Said Smith's friend Bill Ellis, quote, "We turned back around, but couldn't find any of the debris or cushions or the man overboard pole. The bassist's body was never found."
So why don't you turn me loose,
Glenn Miller. Musical Renaissance man Miller was one of the biggest stars of the late 1930s and early 40s. A trombonist, band leader, and conductor, Miller volunteered to join the ongoing American war effort in 1942. As an officer in the United States Army Air Forces, Miller formed the Major Glenn Miller Army Air Forces Orchestra, which was acclaimed by servicemen as boosting morale. Said General James H. Doolittle, quote, Captain Miller, next to a letter from home, your band is the greatest morale booster in the European theater, end quote. Miller was painfully declared MIA on December 15, 1944, after the plane he was on went missing, attributed to rough weather conditions and mechanical failures.
Even though it's snowing, violets are growing. I know why, and so do you.
Jimmy Hoffa.
I would be very happy to have our legal counsel here, our legislative representative here, assisting me in spending as much time as necessary to acquaint the American people with the fact that this is a strike-breaking, union-busting bill, in my opinion.
While the name Jimmy Hoffa may not carry the same cultural cash that it used to, rest assured that Hoffa was one of the most famous men of his era. A fierce but controversial advocate of labor rights, Hoffa was the president of the International Brotherhood of Teamsters from 1957 to 1971.
Did you have a talk with him at that time?
Yes?
About what?
I think general conversation.
Well, what about?
I just don't
recollect?
I don't recollect, but tell you why. I was in New York to appear in front of the grand jury. A lot of things on my mind. Since then, I've had a lot of things on my mind, and I don't recollect what I talked about to him.
The labor leader, who had long been noted for his ties to organized crime and the mafia, went missing in July of 1975. Hoffa had been attempting to make a comeback and retake control of the Union, reportedly to the ire of some senior mafia members. His unlocked car was found in the parking lot of the restaurant where he was last seen, and his disappearance remains unsolved.
The FBI and our partners are here this morning to execute a search warrant.
2 months later, the Fed started a new high-profile dig in Oakland Township. It was the third large-scale Hoffa dig in a decade.
They've had so many false leads. Let's hope this one is a good lead.
The agents did not find Hoffa's body.
Jim Robinson. This Miami boxer is best remembered as one of Muhammad Ali's first professional opponents. On February 7, 1961, Robinson stepped in as a last-minute replacement after Ali's scheduled opponent failed to show. The bout ended swiftly, with Ali knocking him out about 90 seconds into the first round. While Ali's career soared afterwards, Robinson's fizzled out, and he retired 2 years later.
As you know, a lot of fighters, and the great fighters, sometimes later in life after they retired, have not ended up in the best financial condition at all, like Bo Jack, I think. The great fighter is a shining shoes somewhere down in Florida, and it's happened to a great many fighters. You're not going to let that happen to you.
I'll tell you one thing. I'm glad you brought that up.
But that's true, isn't it?
Yes.
His last known interview was with Sports Illustrated in 1979, where he reflected on facing Ali. Since then, no one has seen or heard from Robinson. His disappearance might have gone unnoticed if not for autograph collector Steven Singer, who managed to collect signatures from 49 of Ali's 50 opponents, but spent years unsuccessfully searching for Robinson.
What does this, having this film out now, mean to you in your life, at this time in your life?
It means people who don't really know much about me, it'll tell them more about who I am.
D.Y. Born Forrest Schaub, Canadian rapper D.Y. was steadily rising in the music scene during the late 2000s.
Ooh, that's my spot. Oh, you like that, babe? Yeah, that's my spot. How you like it, babe? Ooh, that's my spot. Oh, you like that, babe? Yeah, that's my spot.
In February 2010, Billboard recognized him as one of Canada's best emerging artists. However, by November of that year, his family reported him missing. They hadn't seen him since August, when he mentioned plans to travel to Mexico. D.Y.'s last known activity was in September, with birthday wishes he sent out to a radio personality on Facebook and Twitter.
D.Y. actually stands for die young. A lot of people take it as negative. It's a metaphor for life being too short. Even if you die at 100, it's too young, so live every day like it's your last.
Rumors suggest that his disappearance may be tied to Mexican drug cartels, though it remains unclear if he ever made it to Mexico. D.Y., whose name stands for Die Young, had signed with CP Records in 2009, but his contract was terminated shortly before he vanished.
Ooh, that's my spot. Yeah, that's my spot.
Jim Sullivan. In 1968, singer-songwriter Jim Sullivan left his native Nebraska for Los Angeles with his high school sweetheart Barbara, hoping to launch a successful music career. He released 2 albums, 1969's UFO and 1972's Jim Sullivan, but neither achieved the success he had hoped for.
Why can't I just roll back the time
Eventually, his faltering career strained his marriage. Desperate for a fresh start, Sullivan set out for Nashville, but he mysteriously disappeared along the way. His car was found abandoned near a remote ranch outside Santa Rosa, New Mexico, with his guitar and unsold records still inside. Speculation about his fate has ranged from foul play to alien abduction, or perhaps that he wandered into the desert. Despite massive searches, no trace of Sullivan has ever been discovered.
That's great.
Joe Pickler.
What's the deal with these kids?
These are my people.
Your people.
My people.
Kyle, did you start a cult?
Yep.
That's so sweet.
After starting his career at the age of 4, Joe Pickler gained prominence as a child actor, with roles in Varsity Blues and the Beethoven film series. However, he stepped back from acting in 2003 to finish high school in his Washington hometown. After graduating in 2005, Pickler planned to return to LA the next year, but those plans were tragically cut short. On January 5, 2006, after spending the evening with friends, Pickler left for home but never arrived.
Just miles from his apartment, his family found his silver Toyota Corolla. It was parked in the back of a Bremerton Mexican restaurant on Sheridan Road and Wheaton Way. Police found a note buried in the car which contained poems and many troubling questions.
Has anything ever been the same?
His car was discovered days later with a note in which he expressed feelings of disappointment but no clear intention of self-harm. Although authorities suspect Pickler may have ended his own life, his family remains hopeful that he will one day return.
Whether he walks through the door or he's carried to us, he has to come home.
Tammy Lynn Leopard.
Tammy Lynn Leopard had it all. She was a beauty queen, an accomplished model who was well on her way to a career in the movies. But in 1982, Tammy began to withdraw, growing increasingly paranoid, until finally she vanished.
The 1983 film Scarface remains a cinematic masterpiece, but one of its lesser-known cast members vanished before it even premiered. Tammy Lynn Leopard, a beauty queen and budding actress, appeared in 1983's Scarface and Spring Break. She was set to move to Hollywood later that year, but mysteriously disappeared on July 6th.
Tammy has already competed in more than 300 beauty contests. She has won the crown 280 times.
She was very loving, kind. She was always smiling. You never saw the child when she wasn't smiling. As young as I can remember, she woke up with a great big smile, and the last thing I saw before she went to sleep was a big smile.
The last person to see Leopard was a male friend who picked her up in Rockledge, Florida, but who left her at a parking lot after they argued. According to her mother, Leopard had shown erratic behavior shortly before her disappearance, seemingly afraid someone was trying to harm her.
And she said, "Mom, what would you say if I told you somebody was trying to kill me?"
Since then, police have received calls from a woman claiming that Leopard is alive and pursuing a nursing career, but these claims remain unverified.
If I had it all to do over again, I would go back and I would believe every single word she told me, and I would just hide her someplace until we found out what the truth was. But I can't do it over. And maybe she had to hide on her own, I don't know.
Connie Converse. Considered a trailblazer of the singer-songwriter genre, Connie Converse's music went largely unrecognized during her lifetime. In the 1950s, Converse recorded a collection of introspective folk music in New York City, but her efforts to break into the music scene were futile.
One by one in the dark, we go walking out at night.
Disillusioned by her lack of success, she moved to Michigan in 1961, where she began working in academia. By the time she was 50, Converse was coping with depression and feelings of unfulfillment. In August 1974, she packed her belongings into her car, wrote farewell letters to her friends and family, and drove away, never to be seen again.
The letters I've seen all have one sort of thing in common, which in effect is her need to get away to a new place and a new start, and that's what she was headed for.
Her music was rediscovered after it was featured on a radio show in 2004, gaining her a cult following.
You may think you left me all alone, but I can hear you talk without a telephone. I don't stand in the need of company with
with everything I see, talking like you.
Bison Daily.
Bison Daily was only in his early 30s when he accomplished something that most of us can only dream about. With $16 million of NBA money in his pocket, he decided to just sail away.
Between 1991 and 1999, Bison Daily had a solid NBA career, playing center for teams like the Orlando Magic and Chicago Bulls. But at age 30, Daly stunned everyone by deciding to retire early to travel the world. In July 2002, he set sail for Tahiti with his girlfriend Serena Carlin, his brother Miles DeBoard, and the boat's captain. However, only DeBoard returned.
Today, the 33-year-old former star is missing and at the center of a manhunt that stretches from the United States to Tahiti. Daly has disappeared along with his girlfriend Serena Carlin. The couple has not been heard from in weeks.
2 months later, authorities arrested him after he forged his brother's signature and bought over $150,000 worth of gold under his name. It is believed that DeBoard killed all 3 individuals during a fight, although their bodies have never been found.
And he discovers that a big check for $152,000 has been cashed out of Bison's account.
Bison wasn't a person known to write checks. He used credit cards or cashier's checks.
DeBoard took the truth with him when he ended his life in September 2002 by overdosing on insulin.
I called Certified Man and I said, there's something fishy going on. I don't believe that the Bison Daily that I know wrote that check out.
Richie Edwards. The guitarist and principal lyricist for Welsh rock band Manic Street Preachers, Richie Edwards was known for his raw, politically charged songwriting.
And they go, oh, you're still a punk band. And I go, but how can you say that? Are they just like living in this safe little world?
Edwards openly dealt with depression and self-harm and channeled much of his inner pain into his music. On February 1st, 1995, just before the band's U.S. tour, Edwards checked out of a hotel in Wales and vanished. His car was later found abandoned near the Severn Bridge, where many people had ended their lives. This fueled speculation that Edwards had done the same, but no conclusive evidence was ever discovered.
So I appeal today, if anybody knows anything, to just come forward.
I know. Even if say he doesn't want, he's just maybe you never know. I'm sure you've been over all these scenarios in your mind as to what's happened from the very, very worst to the fact that he might just want to have disappeared.
Over the years, there have been reported sightings of Edwards in places like India and Israel, but none confirmed. In November 2008, he was declared legally dead.
It's not having that peace of mind. It's so difficult, isn't it? And even if they just tell you, I'm all right, might not want to be found, but I'm okay.
That's right.
Shaun Flynn. Born to Hollywood legend Errol Flynn, Shaun Flynn first followed in his father's footsteps, appearing in a string of films between 1960 and 1966.
I said, get off my place.
Your place?
You heard me. Beat it. This place is mine, and I'm used to giving orders around here.
He soon grew disillusioned with acting and tried his hand at various careers before finding his true calling in photojournalism. Flynn quickly developed a reputation for fearlessly embedding himself in dangerous combat zones to capture striking images of conflict.
Novak here.
We're sending you a team of specialists, Lieutenant. We'll take orders from them.
Right, Colonel. Now what about this refugee, sir?
Keep him under security until Major Finnegan gets there. Over and out.
Over and out.
On April 6, 1970, during the Vietnam War, Flynn and fellow photojournalist Dana Stone were last seen riding motorcycles towards a Viet Cong checkpoint in Cambodia. They were apparently captured by communist guerrillas, but their fate remains unknown. Some theories suggest they were executed by the Khmer Rouge, while others believe they may have died in captivity.
Both things were beyond my control, Major. But I take full responsibility for the consequences. Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications.
Amelia Earhart.
She was a daredevil with the wings of an angel, a pioneer who embodied the pure romance of flying. But she embodied the danger of it too. 75 years ago, Amelia Earhart climbed into her Lockheed Electra and with her navigator, Fred Noonan, disappeared somewhere over the Pacific.
This trailblazing aviator made history by becoming the first woman to fly solo non-stop across the Atlantic Ocean. This achievement catapulted Amelia Earhart into the spotlight, and she embraced her celebrity status, writing best-selling books, going on speaking tours, and even launching a female clothing line.
But Rick Gillespie thinks in her effort to find Howland, she stumbled on Nicomororo instead and managed to make an emergency landing, and then waited for the help that never came.
Always wanting to break new ground, Earhart set her sights on her most ambitious goal yet, becoming the first woman to circumnavigate the world. However, on July 2, 1937, while flying from Lae, New Guinea to Howland Island, Earhart and her navigator, Fred Noonan, vanished over the Pacific Ocean.
Maybe the answer to this 75-year-old mystery is indeed just off that reef, resting in 1,000 feet of water.
Although it is widely believed they ran out of fuel and crashed into the ocean, no trace of the aircraft or their remains has ever been found.
I know what's coming, Mr. Daly. I've always known. But it doesn't matter.
Which missing person case in our video shocked you the most? Be sure to let us know in the comments below.
It won't change what Earhart accomplished, but it could finally put her to rest.